The rain had already started when the letter arrived. No postmark, no sender, just thick parchment sealed with wax insignia. A sigil he didn't recognize, shaped like an eye blooming into a rose. Elias Reed held it for a moment longer than he should have. The paper oddly warm despite the cold wind scraping along the windows of his cramped London flat. He tore it open. The script inside was written in slanting ink, as though the pen itself had trembled. You are summoned. The inheritance awaits you at the Hollowstead estate. Midnight, this Friday. Bring nothing. You already have what you need. There was no signature. He would have dismissed it as a prank. Except he knew the name. Hollowstead, a place half whispered in the back of family stories, where great-grandfather had disappeared during a thunderstorm and Elias's father refused to speak of, except in drunken curses and tight-jawed silences. It wasn't a place so much as a ghost that loomed in the margins of old maps. That night, he dreamed of lace, endless folds of it spiraling around his throat, pulled taut by unseen hands. Friday came. Against sense and instinct, Elias took the train out to countryside. No luggage. The voice in his dream had told him not to. The sky had turned to steel by the time he arrived at the station closest to Hollowstead, a lonely platform sagging under ivy and rust. No taxis, no people, just a single black carriage parked along the gravel road. The driver wore no face, just darkness beneath a low-brimmed hat. Elias climbed in. Silence wrapped around him like a second skin as the trees thickened. The forest grew denser, the light stranger, taking on a bluish hue like the final flicker before a bulb dies. Every curve of the road felt remembered, though Elias had never been there before. When the carriage stopped, it was at the foot of a mansion half consumed by brambles. The estate was massive, baroque and crumbling, with roof lined like crooked teeth against the thunderclouds. Lightning flashed, briefly illuminating cracked gargoyles, blind windows, and a single open door, inviting or perhaps daring him to enter. He did. Inside, the air smelled of rain-damp stone and old wax. Candlelight flickered down the hallway, though he saw no hands alight them. Portraits stared at him as he passed. Faces elongated, expressions caught between anguish and awe. He reached the grand hall, a vaulted chamber with a domed glass ceiling that showed only darkness above. At its center was a mirror, enormous and rimmed in tarnished silver. She was waiting there. Or rather, her reflection was. In the glass, a woman in bridal white stood behind him. Though when he turned, there was no one. Elias stepped closer. Her eyes locked onto his in the mirror, golden, burning, wrong. Not like flame, but like molten metal. And her voice, when it came, was not spoken aloud but inside him, like a memory he hadn't made yet. You've come. The clock has begun again. His breath caught. Who are you? The woman didn't blink. Her features were perfect in a way that unsettled him. Too smooth, too symmetrical, like a sculpture rather than flesh. Dark curls coiled down her shoulders, threaded with withered roses, and her veil moved with a mind of its own, drifting as though underwater. I have waited through centuries. Now you must remember. Elias turned from the mirror, and she was there, truly this time. Solid, real. Her bare feet made no sound on the marble floor. Every instinct in his body screamed at him to run. But he didn't. Remember what? He asked, his voice hoarse. She stepped close. The scent of her was not floral, not perfume, but ozone and damp earth. Something cosmic, something cold. Her eyes shimmered. Her lips parted. You're choosing. You were born from a line meant to forget, but the blood remembers. A sudden pressure stabbed behind his eyes. Visions hit him like a wave. A spiral of stars collapsing. A white sun over a desert glass. A woman standing on a cliff of bone, whispering to a sky that answered in thunder. Then it stopped. He stumbled back. Hand pressed the wall for balance. What are you? Her voice was gentle, sad. Bride. Oracle. Keeper. I whisper to those the stars mark. And you, Elias, are marked. Lightning cracked above the glass dome. For a moment, shadows spied across the walls, unnaturally fast. Elias could feel his pulse in his fingertips. This is mad. I don't even know you. You do. In pieces. In dreams you buried. I've spoken to you since you were a child. You just call me by other names." He shuddered. He had dreamed of a woman with a veil before. As a boy, always in storms. Her hand reached toward him. He didn't move. When her fingers brushed his cheek, warmth radiated through him. But not comfort. It was knowing, crushing, immense. A deluge of alien syllables echoed in his ears, too fast to catch. He clutched his head. "Stop. What are you doing?" She withdrew, her expression unreadable. There are secrets that must be given slowly, or the vessel shatters. He backed away. "Why me?" She tilted her head, veil trailing like smoke. "Because the last whisper died. Because the seal weakens. Because something is waking, and I can no longer keep it dreaming alone." The mirror behind her flickered. For a split second, it didn't reflect her at all. Only him, with golden eyes and a mouth moving in silence. Thunder boomed. Elias turned to flee. But the hall behind him no longer existed. Just endless doors, all closed. The estate had shifted. He looked back. The bride still stood, hands clasped. "Leave, if you wish. But you'll return. You always do. The danger isn't me, Elias. It's what listens when I stop whispering." The words crawled into him, nestling like seeds in the cracks of his mind. He did not sleep that night. And when morning came, he found no sun, only a sky of ash and a faint voice murmuring from the walls. "Remember," and something inside him did. The rooms changed when Elias wasn't looking. Corridors stretched where walls had been. Staircases spiraled into ceilings, vanishing into shadows. Time folded in on itself, and he learned quickly not to trust the angles. The Hollowstead estate was no longer bound by ordinary geometry or light. He would leave a room, turn, and re-enter the same space with different paintings, or with furniture age 100 years in seconds. His reflection, once an obedient servant, began to lag behind him in mirrors, moving half a beat too slow. She appeared without footsteps, always veiled, always silent until he spoke. When he finally asked her name, she tilted her head as if tasting the question, and said, "Names are not safe." Still, he needed something to call her. "Then what are you called by those who risk it?" She was quiet for a time. Then, almost reluctantly, she answered, "Sarah." Sarah did not eat. She did not sleep. But when he pressed further, "When were you born?" "How old are you?" she would answer only in riddles. "I arrived when the last gate was sealed," or "My voice was made to outlive stars." And somehow Elias believed her. One morning, if time passed at all in this place, she appeared at the end of the library hall, fingers drifting over the spines of ancient books. They whispered as she touched them, soft hissing syllables, almost like sighs. Elias followed the sound. "These books talk," he said, hesitant. Sarah's eyes met his, bright and burning. "They remember." He watched her pull a volume free. Its cover writhed, symbols crawling like ink in water. "They hold the secret to the fallen," she said, "of what came before your kind built towers from stone. Knowledge once whispered too loud." He approached slowly. "Why am I here, Sarah? Truly." Her gaze lingered on him, not answering at first. Then she handed him the book. It opened without his touch. Pages turned on their own, showing an illustration of a figure cloaked in shadow, kneeling before a woman draped in light. A spiral of stars circled them both, and between them, a veil stitched with alien runes. "You are heir to the line of echo-bearers," Sarah said. "Every few centuries, one is born with a capacity to hold what cannot be written, secrets that bend the world. You, Elias, are the last." He looked down at his hands. They were trembling. "I'm just no one. I was a bartender. I failed college twice. There's nothing special about me." "You endure," she replied, "and that is the only requirement." The book closed. The wind in the hall stopped. Elias looked up. "Why me now?" Sarah turned to the high window. Beyond it, the clouds churned unnaturally fast, lightning caught in a loop across the horizon. "Because the bindings fail. Because I am fraying." She reached for her veil and pulled it slightly aside, not enough to expose her face. only to reveal the edge of something more. Beneath the fabric, her skin glowed faintly, etched with countless marks, letters, symbols, languages that pulse in time with his breath. These are the secrets I carry, but the weight of them is breaking me. Elias felt the cold realization settle in his chest. You need someone to carry them next. No, she said too quickly. Then quieter, not yet, not until you choose. Choose what? To hear all of it, or none. The lights dimmed, not from lack of electricity. He hadn't seen a single wire in Hollowstead, but as though the house itself was holding its breath. What happens if I say no? He asked. Sarah closed her eyes. Then the whisper stops, and they begin to listen again. He almost asked who they were, but part of him already knew, even if he couldn't name it. Some truths were like splinters in the brain. You didn't have to see them to feel their damage. That night, he found a mark on his shoulder, a ring of small, glowing script just under the collarbone. It hadn't been there before. He scrubbed at it until his skin turned red, but the glow remained, faint as starlight. Sarah didn't seem surprised when he showed her. You've begun to listen, she said, and the secrets are choosing where to rest. He paced the room. This isn't fair. I never asked for this. Sarah touched the wall, and it opened like a curtain, revealing a space that hadn't existed a second earlier. A small room, a chamber, round and windowless. At its center sat a stone basin filled with black liquid that rippled despite no breeze. You were asked long ago, she said, stepping inside. You just forgot how to say yes. Elias didn't follow her. Tell me what the danger is. The real one. She looked at the basin. There are things older than light, older than the space between stars. They whisper, too, but not to protect, only to feed. He stared at her. And you're the wall between them and us? I was, she said, but even stone erodes. Her reflection shimmered in the basin, and it wasn't human. It had too many eyes. It wore the veil like it had grown from its skull. Elias turned away, bow rising in his throat. I don't know if I can do this. I know, Sarah said. That's why it must be your choice. He left the chamber. The house didn't stop him. But as he wandered the twisting halls, rooms repeated themselves out of order. He saw the library 3 times. A hallway ended in a mirror, where his reflection blinked before he did. He couldn't leave. Not really. And when he finally lay down on a velvet couch, exhausted, the last thing he heard before sleep took him was a whisper not from Sarah, but from the walls themselves. Tell me everything, or let me out. He dreamed of teeth, rows and rows of them, arranged in spirals, grinding against stars. And when he woke, the mark on his shoulder had grown. The mark pulsed now, slow, steady, like a second heartbeat just beneath Elias's skin. He tried not to touch it, but it itched in a way that wasn't physical. It whispered, not in words, but in hunger, a tension building, a door creaking slowly inward. Sarah stood by the window of a new room, the solarium, though no sun had ever touched it. The glass pane showed not the outside world, but shifting constellations that danced too fast, stars wheeling in unnatural orbits. She watched them without blinking. You didn't tell me it would grow, Elias said, voice low. I told you it would choose, she replied. He stepped closer. It's not a tattoo. It's alive. Her eyes flicked to his shoulder, where the script now spiraled toward his collarbone in tendrils of silver light. It's a memory, Elias. A secret you've already agreed to keep. I don't remember agreeing to anything, because it happened before you were born. She turned from the stars, her expression unreadable. You think you are a single life, moving forward in time, but you are a chord struck many times. Each life is an echo of the last, and now the resonance is strong enough for the secrets to return. He sat on a bench nearby, hands in his hair, trying to focus, to rationalize. But nothing inside Hollowstead obeyed reason. You said I had a choice. You do, she said, but choice doesn't prevent consequence. He looked at her, really looked. Then what happens if I say yes? She hesitated. It was the first time she had. You'll begin to hold the echoes, she said, the full whisper. You will hear the names that wake stars and the promises that silence them. You'll see what lies beneath the veil of this world, and they will see you back. Who are they? The forgotten, the hungry, the unbound, the things that were locked away by the first whisperer when your kind still called fire a god. He swallowed, throat dry. And if I don't take it? Then the whisper dies with me, Sarah said, and the bindings fail. She reached out and, for the first time, lifted the veil fully. Elias flinched, not out of fear, but awe. Her face was a mosaic of worlds. Her skin was night sky, scattered with moving stars. Her eyes were twin galaxies, spiraling inward. She was terrible and beautiful, human only in outline. The longer he looked, the more he forgot what he'd come from. His name felt then unimportant. Sarah covered herself again. I was made to carry the unspoken, but I was never meant to carry alone. I am unraveling, and when I do, they will come. Elias stood. His legs shook. Then why not force it? Put the rest of the mark on me. Why wait? Because consent is the final seal, she said. If I force it, the whisper becomes a scream. Silence bloomed between them, heavy and absolute. The solarium dimmed. The stars behind the glass stopped moving. Then Elias heard it. Footsteps. Not Sarah's. Not his own. They echoed down the marble hall, like dripping water, deliberate and slow. Sarah stiffened. You shouldn't have heard that yet. What is it? He asked. She didn't answer, but her face tightened. Stay behind me. She stepped into the hall. The air chilled instantly. Frost skittered across the mirror-like floor as a figure approached through the gloom. It looked like a man. Wore the shape well. Tall, dressed in antique black, with long hands that dragged slightly behind him, fingertips whispering over stone. But its face was only an approximation. Too smooth, eyes just a fraction too far apart, mouth a little too wide. Sarah whispered to Elias without turning. It's an echo eater. The thing stopped a few paces away and smiled. An impossibly wide crescent. Sarah, it said, in a voice that sounded like wind through bone. You frayed beautifully. You are not welcome here, she said, her tone like steel wrapped in silk. The creature ignored her. Its pale eyes fixed on Elias. The next cup, cracked already. Elias felt ice in his lungs. What do you want? The thing laughed. No sound, only the suggestion of it. I want what all things want. To be remembered. To be spoken again. To be free. You're bound, Elias said. That's why you're not already devouring everything. It turned its head slowly, eyes glimmering. Bound only by her silence. And she grows tired, doesn't she? The veil frays. The whisper scatter. Soon, all doors open. Sarah raised her hand. The creature recoiled as if struck. Hissing as cracks splintered to the floor beneath it. It stepped back into shadow, still smiling. We will meet again, Echo Bearer, it said. Soon you'll beg to be full, and I will be waiting. Then it was gone, like a breath held too long, then exhaled into the dark. Elias collapsed to his knees. What was that? An old voice, Sarah said, helping him up. One of many. I don't think I can do this. You must, she said, because the longer you wait, the louder they become. His mark burned. The runes shifted again, forming a new ring. What's happening to me? The secrets are unfolding, she whispered. They want to be told. Elias looked at his hand. The skin shimmered faintly now, in the reflection of the darkened glass. His eyes flickered gold. He wasn't sure if it was his own will anymore, or something seated deep inside him, but he heard himself say, Then tell me another secret. And Sarah, softly, almost like a mother to a child, said, Once, before time wore numbers, the stars sang to each other, and something listened. Outside, the glass cracked. The stars began to fall. The night inside Hollowstead had changed, not grown darker, but more aware. The shadows no longer rested passively along the walls. They leaned, listened, moved when unobserved. Elias felt them brush his skin as he passed through each corridor, subtle as breath on glass. The weight of the whisper pressed heavier each hour, the mark on his body spreading in delicate, luminous script across his chest and ribs like creeping vines of knowledge no human mind was meant to nurture. Sarah no longer floated silently ahead. She walked beside him now, slower, her posture rigid. There was a faint trembling in her steps, only noticeable if you watched too long. She was fraying, just as the Echo Eater had said. "You're dying, aren't you?" Elias asked as they passed beneath an arch of bone-white stone, etched with languages that pulsed faintly when he spoke. Sarah's head turned slightly. "Not dying. Dissolving. Is there a difference?" She stopped and faced him. "Dying ends. Dissolving bleeds." She held out her hand. Light poured from her fingertips, the same color as the script on Elias's skin. It danced in the air like dust, then evaporated. "The whisper is leaking," she said. "Soon I won't be a vessel. I'll be a gateway." Elias felt cold. They reached the atrium, a towering dome of glass above a pool of still, black water. The stars overhead spun violently now, some falling in flickers of gold and violet. He remembered what she said. The stars once sang to each other, and something had listened. He wondered if they were now screaming. He stood at the water's edge. His reflection stared back, but his eyes no longer matched. One was still his, a tired, anxious human eye. The other burned faint gold, with a slit pupil that belonged to no species he could name. "I'm changing," he said. "You're becoming," Sarah corrected. He didn't turn to look at her. "Will I stop being human?" "Yes," she said with gentle honesty. He let that silence hang. Then, "Will I stop being me?" This time, she paused. "No," she said, "but you will become more than one version of yourself. The echoes will live in you, not just memories, possibilities. And what if I choose to walk away now?" Her answer was quiet. "Then I unravel. The bindings fail. The Echo Eaters consume what's left. And if I say yes, then you become the Whisperer, keeper of all that cannot be spoken. You will carry me." Elias laughed, but there was no humor. "That sounds like dying to me." "In a way," Sarah said. "But death with purpose is not the same as loss." He crouched at the water's edge. The surface shimmered faintly, and he realized the reflection wasn't just his. It was showing something else. A memory? A warning? Within the pool, he saw a ruined city, half consumed by dark vines and fireless flame. Figures moved within it, whispering to themselves as they tore their own faces away, revealing others beneath. Above them all loomed a vast shape, too large, too fluid to define, coiling around remains of towers like a thought given flesh. "They've been here before," Elias whispered. Sarah nodded. Before words were tamed, before memory had form, the unbound broke through the veil, and everything that could remember them was unmade. Elias turned to her, something shifting behind his eyes. "Then we're not just protectors of secrets. We're jailers." Sarah's lips barely moved. "Whispers are chains. Every word you will carry is another lock on their prison." He rose to his feet. "Then give it to me. All of it." But Sarah didn't smile. She stepped back. "It's not that simple. The final seal must be broken in the vault." "I thought this was a vault." "No," she said. "This is where you decide. But the vault is where you become." A door opened behind the pool, one Elias had never seen before. Black stone rimmed in dull copper, inscribed with glyphs that shimmered with his heartbeat. Sarah's voice dropped to a whisper. "Once you enter, there is no turning back." Elias stepped toward the door. "What happens in there?" "You speak," she said, "and if the vault accepts you, it will echo back. If it rejects you," her voice faded. He stepped through. The chamber was dark and circular. At its center stood a pedestal, empty, but as he approached, the mark on his skin flared, lines of script rising in heat and light, lifting like steam from his body. The pedestal responded, humming deep in the stone. He placed his hand on it. The whisper hit him like a flood. It wasn't sound. Not really. It was sensation, memory, language, and thought braided together. He saw stars being born in reverse, collapsing into forgotten names. He felt the ache of planets learning loneliness. He heard the first breath ever drawn, not by a creature, but by existence itself, startled to find itself awake. He screamed, or thought he did. His body collapsed, and yet his mind expanded outward, filling the vault, the house, the horizon beyond it. He was a word in the page, the voice in the silence. Every secret ever whispered now nestled behind his eyes. And through it all, he heard Sarah's voice, distant and calm. "You are the whisper now." When he rose, the pedestal was empty once more. But Sarah stood across from him, no longer veiled. Her face was pale now, eyes dim. The stars in her skin had gone out. "You carry it," she said. He nodded, but his voice had changed. It echoed, not in pitch, but in resonance, as if layered with 1,000 others. "I understand now." She took a breath, then speak the first word. He looked around. The vault pulsed with tension, waiting. "Name them," she said. "Let the chain close." Elias stepped forward. His mark blazed like a sun, wrapping around his arms, legs, throat. He opened his mouth and whispered. The name he spoke had never been heard before. It bent the stone, cracked the vault, stitched Sarah's form into silence once more. The thing that had spoken to them in the corridor shuddered in some far place and went still. When he stepped back into the atrium, the stars above had stilled. Sarah stood at the threshold, veiled once again, but now her posture was restful, at peace. "You remembered it," she said. Elias looked at her with eyes not entirely human. "I whispered it back into forgetting." And still beyond the horizon, something moved. Not now, but soon.